Welcome to the Craig and Greg Show, presented by Maximize Leadership. Now, here are Craig Owens and Greg Harris.
Hey, welcome to the Craig and Greg Show. I'm Craig. This is Greg. We're kicking off a new year for you. And, you know, the beginning of a year for a lot of people is a time for dreaming about what could be. And we want you to dream, but we want you to dream with a plan. We want you to dream and have some benchmarks along the way. And so one of the ways that we do that, and Greg, you've explored this and taught on this topic a lot, and I know you do it a lot in your own personal life. It's definitely something you live out, is the setting and the celebrating of goals along the way.
Well, it's one thing to say I'm going through life. It's one thing I accomplish things as I went through life. And I think there's an old adage, you live to eat or eat to live. And I think goals are, how do you bring up the value of life?
Right.
And goals for a lot of us, whether it's sports or leadership or business or church or even your own families, like what are our goals? And kind of a crass comment is if you set a goal but don't have a plan, you're kind of a dreamer. And I guess my thing is don't be a dreamer.
Right.
It's one thing to say, and I've been around people, my goal is to, lose 10 pounds. And that you said it, you don't begin to shed the weight.
Right. Right. Yeah. Just having it out there doesn't. Yeah. And your plan to drop those pounds is
duct tape.
I hope that I can do it. Yeah. Hope is not a strategy here. So, so let's talk about first a little bit about on the negative side, since you brought that up. What are some reasons that people, or maybe some traps that they could blindly fall into, why they don't set goals? What are some things that hold people back from doing that, or some things that maybe they're not even aware of that they're not setting goals?
Well, maybe start with one area is I think generationally, like my grandparents didn't tell my parents to set goals. They just told them what to do. I need you out in the farm. I need you in the garage to help me with the truck, whatever.
Right.
I think the next generations, primarily the boomers, really ended up, kind of accomplishing more with the foundation, what was set by the traditionals.
And that was the group that I would first start hearing people like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan?
You're right on.
You didn't hear that before.
No. I think probably the egg world, where maybe you had a family and they raised chickens. And so they didn't have to go to the store. They had their dozen chicken eggs a day or whatever. And it was a little more self-contained, or, they did it for their own family. I think now it's, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Sure.
And I think that thought process has probably got us to think, 1 year, 3 year, 5 year plans. I think the one biggie is comfort zones. And I think you maybe put some in our notes too. It's just such a trap, to be comfortable versus stretch yourself. And as we get older, being limber and any yoga or whatever we all do, it hurts more to stretch.
Sure.
And maybe that's what happens as we get a little more comfortable, like, and this is good enough.
Yeah.
And that's the good enough is probably my other one is settling. And I liked it when people settled developed new states across our country, Lewis and Clark kind of people. That's not settling, that's settlers.
Right.
But I think those two really jump out for me that I've seen, even in my own life. I'm sure you have.
Well,
too.
Those two words, I can't stand when I hear that from people, that good enough. Like it's good enough where I am right now, because you're right, to reach any kind of goal does require me to change something, which takes me out of my comfort zone, and there's some pain in doing that. There's some awkwardness in doing that, and I can't believe how many people just say, well, I'd rather just stay where I am right now because it's comfortable here and it's good enough, and they never, push out to find what's on the other side.
If we could, the people that say good enough, and we could give them a facial expression over the previous years, you'd see them go from,
yeah,
it just goes away.
Absolutely.
Your joy in life, I don't say happiness.
Nope.
Happiness is maybe experiences and stuff or whatever, but a joy, like a countenance, goes away when you're not pushing yourself. And
Absolutely.
I think we're going to do a personal development episode sometime here soon. I think that's the push. It's your own self. You know, it's one thing to hire a coach, which I highly recommend people hire us, text us, email us, reach out. That's how you get to that place of goal accomplishments.
Right.
Do you think sometimes people get a little afraid even to like achieve it? Like, I don't know if I can. Like a confidence.
I think some people are afraid even of the success, like what comes with the success on the other side.
Yeah. Well, maybe even expectations like, well, I climbed Kilimanjaro. Now what do I do next?
Yes.
I don't want to do another bigger thing. I don't want to swim with sharks.
Right.
You know, I think we maybe are a little afraid of it. I don't know. Not fear of failure, although that's probably something big, but
well, let me before I want to ask you about what some of the advantages are and why people should set goals. But you said something about coaching that I'd like to just kind of build on for just a second. As a athlete, all your life, you had to set some goals and you were around other people that were challenging you and that sort of thing. What's the kind of balance point between you motivating yourself and somebody else coming alongside you, somebody like a coach that is going to say, Greg, I see something that you might be missing and let me help you with this. So you could be very disciplined in yourself. And that's not what we're saying. We're not saying get a coach because you're not disciplined. What we're saying is that a coach is going to help you maybe even take your discipline farther than you took it before. Talk about maybe where you experienced that.
Maybe the simplest vernacular would be fitness training. You go to a gym, you hire a coach, and they make you do 3 sets of 12 of something. Maybe at one point, my third set, I might do 9 because I don't have it. Funny, when the fitness coach says, give me 3 more, I find it. I had it in me. He just or she just pulled it out of me, right? Yep. I think there's 2 things. One is accountability. I know it's a naughty word for a lot of people. I think the second thing is maybe disappointing someone. So there's an outside pressure,
sure,
not just a personal discipline for me.
Right.
So I like the coach part. I will, and having coached for more than 2 decades, I've also learned to get something out of an athlete, yelling doesn't help.
Right.
Or negativity.
Right.
You lazy bum. Yeah, that never got me to do more sit-ups or push-ups. So I think the coaching piece, or maybe not even that word. If I said, hey, next year I'd like to do less of this and more of this, and I told you.
Yeah.
In a month, we're going out for bagels, and you say, how you doing? Not too good.
Right.
I don't want to talk about it.
Yep.
You're almost afraid to, like eye contact.
Yep.
And I think that's a big thing on goals, not just setting. I will say one of my bad habits is having a few too many goals.
Yeah. And that's what a coach can help you do too. Yep.
Yes. And so that clarity of like, what's a really big, important goal? And it may be just a small tweak on how I live.
Yep.
It doesn't have to be, I'm going to run a marathon. That to me would not be a goal I would ever write down, by the way, if you're worried about me running. But I think that the part that setting goals, they usually trigger behaviors because you're trying to end up someplace, like a map. And sometimes we do get distracted, like you're very disciplined with phone or maybe, doing stuff outside. You're like, I know I need to get my sermon ready. I have a board meeting. No, I'm going to meet with this local community leader. I got to get prepped. Sometimes we have too many. And I think the devil loves that.
Oh, sure.
If I can put a plug in.
Absolutely. Well, so let me just kind of wrap that part up real quick. We offer coaching. We have these huddles that we do. And I want to make it really clear that when we're talking to you about employing us, using us as a coach, we're not saying that you can't do it on your own. I think that it'd be safe to say that a lot of the people that we coach with have already had quite a bit of success.
Absolutely.
But what it is you're saying, I want to stretch to that next level, and I just need another set of eyes. I need somebody else that's outside to give me a different perspective. So if you just go to maximizeleadership.com, there is a place on there about our coaching huddles You can fill out the form there. There is absolutely no obligation. All you're doing when you're filling out that form is just to trigger a phone call or some kind of interaction. Greg and I, one of us will get in touch with you, and we'll dialogue with you a little bit. And we're going to be honest to say we can help you, or doesn't feel like something that we can do, but here's somebody else that we think can come alongside you. So asking for a coach is not saying that you can't do it. It's saying that you can do it. You have some success, but you want to go a little bit farther, and that's what we're here for. So check that out. So
that's a good summary, buddy.
Thanks. So let's talk about why do people set goals. You shared a list with me, and I love it. So share those points that you were.
I'll read them pretty quick. And obviously, we could do a podcast on one of these. That's the hard part. Is there's so many deep dives. So I talked about trigger behaviors. It kind of helps guide our focus and protects us, I think, from being distracted. It's so easy to, I don't know what you have on your phone, but it'll tell you how many, hours you were screen time.
Yep.
When you look at that, sometimes you're like, well, was that productive?
Yeah.
Or was that just gallivanting around with what people sent me?
Sure.
Versus me looking.
Yep.
And my ratio of what I looked for versus what someone randomly sent everybody is not a very good ratio in my opinion. So I think there's momentum that goals can bring us. Like what's my next thing? There's it develops a hunger to push yourself. Like, well, if I did 20 push-ups, maybe I can do 30 next month.
Sure.
So there's like a gradual. It definitely increases productivity.
Yes.
Which is what we kind of are wired as. Like, I want to get good things done that God wants us to do.
Yes.
And avoid the waste. Not that we can't have downtime, watch a movie or take a walk. Those are all good pieces of keeping us sharp. But I think the other part maybe is direction. Like I can get distracted to, well, that looks good too. Maybe I'll take a cooking class. Okay,
Yep.
but you're going to have to give up something.
Yeah, the goal will keep you.
There's an exchange,
right.
Yep. So those would be a few of them that I have deducted myself, more than watched other people, which
Sure.
It's easy to pick out, that person doesn't have discipline. Well, it's not about discipline. It might just be how do they get to the next level.
Yep. Yeah, and that is a part of, like, when you say I want to improve in this area. Part of the goal setting is to say, well, how can we make that a little bit more specific? How can we make that something that we can measure? You can't just say I want to get better at, and how do you know that is better? Like I used the joke with somebody once. They said something like, well, I want to make more money next year. Can you be more specific about that? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, well, if you get out of your car and you're walking across the parking lot and you found a nickel on the ground, technically you've met that goal. You have more money than you had before. So can you be more specific? And I think the goals, when you work on those, help you to say, I have to say no to this because it's taking me away from staying focused on this goal.
And there is a bit of sacrifice involved with setting a goal. And then the next section of this episode will be on attaining those goals.
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to, that sounds good too. And if you're not careful, all of a sudden now your plate's really full and you've accomplished nothing. You have
Sure.
half-cooked food on your plate, to use a bad analogy. I think we'll go back and forth on this one. Why are they hard to attain, goals? I think one that often comes up, at least what I hear from people a little bit younger than me, is excuses and blame.
Sure.
Well, the coach, sports, well, that professor, my supervisor, it's continual. Well, what can you control and what do you have for a goal? Not goal contingent on your supervisor giving you a raise or more responsibility.
Yep.
What can you do yourself? And I think that's why it's so personal.
Yes.
You can have team goals, organizational goals.
Sure.
We're not even talking about that element today. But I think the attaining thing is the excuses. I do love this word. I don't know if I've ever heard anybody saying something different, but time is not manageable.
Right.
It's still clicking. Like
right.
we've run our podcast here for about 14 minutes is my guess. It just keeps going. It doesn't stop because I'm managing it better.
Right.
Or it slows down so I can get more in my seconds.
Right.
I don't know what you think about time management, but it's almost laughable.
I don't think that there is such a thing as time management, except if you're on a football field, you can call a timeout and stop that game clock. But in real life, it's not time management. It's self-management.
Oh, I like that.
And if I don't have the goal of what I'm going for, then why would I tell myself to stop something,
Yeah. Yes. Although, wouldn't we love, audience, wouldn't we love to call a timeout and just stop? Like, my kid's being a brat.
Yeah.
They're not eating their food. My grass is growing outside and my back hurts. I don't have time for all this. Yeah.
Just stop.
Time
Right.
You want a 30-second timeout or a full minute?
Yeah.
And you're like, I'll take like 3 years if I could.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. I think clarity, maybe what I would say for me setting goals, Craig, has been I want to maybe envision who I should be down the road.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a big deal for me. Like, so what does God want me to be? Not who am I, because that's subtle or good enough, but it's like, what am I supposed to be? And then I might have to get rid of some things.
Yep.
I don't feel that's good use of time,
right,
or my energy or my talent. So kind of run with that one.
Yeah. Well, I think that's probably for me, when you say good use of your time and your talents, I think that one of the things that tripped me up for a long time, and then when I kind of got a handle on it, it helped me to help other people, is like hearing your goals and then saying, oh yeah, Greg does it like that. That's how I should do it. And trying to like take somebody else's goals and just simply to say that I'm not wired that way. So like I'll use the example of, Harrison is over here running the board for us. I am decidedly a morning person and he is decidedly not. So it would be silly for him to say, oh, you know what? Look at all the stuff that my dad gets done first thing in the morning. I'm going to do the same thing. But I could just as much say it the other way around. Look at how many things that he gets done after I'm in bed. So you have to, I think it's a waste of your energy and you're kind of chasing around. If you're setting your goals based on somebody else's goals, you do have to be realistic with the way that you're wired. Mm-hmm. So if you're not a morning person, don't try to set those goals for the morning. Right. If you're not an athlete, don't set these goals of like, all right, I'm going to go out and run 3 miles a day. You got to make them fit who you are, the way that you're wired. And then I think you'll be much more successful at attaining them.
Yeah. I think that speaks a little bit to perfectionism. Like, well, yes. I really respect him, so maybe she's amazing. I think I should do what she does.
Right.
I think that's a big catch. I was just giggling while you were kind of talking. I've had 2 buddies call after Christmas, and I think as leaders, if you really want to be an influencer on goals, these 2 guys, unsolicited, had to ask me, what are you going to do next year? And their interest was to tell me what they were thinking of doing. And there was almost an expectation. We were on the phone. They had to tell me their goals. And that is called leadership influence.
Sure.
Because they called and like, hey, so I'm going to do this. I think next year, what do you think? I think that's great. Does that resonate to what you can accomplish?
Right.
And how can I help you? You'd help me? Well, you said it was important to you.
Right.
And that's sort of that buddy system that we
Yes.
can create as leaders. But they both felt compelled, to tell me, hey, I got some big goals for next year. I do get a kick out of it. I said, so is this the same as last year? And one goes, yeah, I just want to lose a few pounds. I says, that's horrible. He goes, why? I says, why don't you have a goal of I want to be healthier?
Right.
Sure feels different. Like I want to be healthy. Not, I gotta, put the goodies away in my pantry. I can't go there. It's like a negative.
Right.
That's not sometimes an okay motivation, but
no, it definitely. I think you motivate yourself a lot more. Yeah, because of doing that. In fact, you know what? Let's talk about too that, because I think it's a great segue. You're very good at celebrating when people hit the goals, or even when maybe they haven't quite got there yet, but they're definitely on their way towards that goal. And I think that that's a missing component in a lot of places, that people set the goals and might even reach the goals, but they don't take time to celebrate, or even other people around them don't celebrate. So talk about the importance of why should we celebrate those goals, and how do we do that? What's an appropriate way to celebrate with people?
I don't know where you all are living in terms of our viewership, but in some regions, like, well, you can't show off. You can't really do that. So celebration's almost poo-pooed.
Right.
I don't know if that's a word. It's not in my notes, but I'm sure it's something the birds just did in my car.
We'll bleep it out later if we have to.
Ooh, yeah. But I'm not chewing gum. That's the best part. Yeah. Today, anyway. I think the place where poo-pooing celebration, then why go through all the hard work?
Right.
Like, I mean, I'm thinking of you got bowl games, you got Super Bowl, World Series, Stanley Cup. You got all these, they practice, 13 months out of 12 to get to this final game.
Yeah.
And then they poo-poo it.
Right.
What are you doing?
Well, you won, but don't just.
Yeah, don't lift the trophy.
Right.
Don't pop off champagne bottles. So I think that really does help the psyche. It creates a hunger for me.
Sure.
Like, that was really fun.
Yeah.
We celebrated. You wrote a book. I mean, I hope I celebrated in good fashion many different ways, because that was quite an accomplishment for you. And I think as leaders, we have to be willing to celebrate others too, because there's reciprocity. They'll check back with you.
Right.
Hey, Greg, did you finish your book? Funny that you asked, Craig. I'm probably next quarter with my next book. Oh, great. I can't wait to read it and celebrate it. I think it's infectious, the celebration. I'm going to just read a couple of things on what I think reaching a goal should be celebrated. Improves health. Like, okay, I did that. I'm sure I could do this.
Yep.
And so there's momentum that you create.
Yep.
We talked about it earlier. Increased optimism, like, I just dare you to try. Write a second book, which I've already dared you. So I don't know if you've said, forget you, Greg, I got writer's cramp. But I think that daring others is part of our leadership influence. Like, what do you want to do now?
Yeah.
Not, okay, you did that, not celebrating. It's more, okay, how'd that feel? Awesome. Okay, what's next?
Right.
It's not moving on from the celebration. It's using the celebration.
Yes, as a launching pad. Right.
I think is really critical. Coping skills and feedback. I think if you do a coaching session, sometimes we have to tell them, hey, you brought that up last month. I wonder if it's something that you should just table and accept, or do we have to only focus on that and get rid of the other peripheral because it's distracting you?
Because you keep moving it to the next month and to the next month.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Like you just carry it forward, kind of like credit card bills for some people. But yeah, I think goals to me share what's important. And if I share a goal with you, I'm sharing what's important. And if you're my friend, which you are beyond my friend, but you can say, oh, I can help him. I want to ask him.
Yep.
It's important to him, and that's part of leadership influence. And I think coming in for a landing here, it develops a success mindset. Getting back to some regions don't really like, well, yeah, that's a good company. Is it a great company? I don't know. They're all good companies. Well, no, they're going to be great. What's the bar? What's the the highest performer? What's the best practices in whatever industry you're in? I think it's important for that mindset to say, I'm going to get there.
Right.
But it's always a step at a time.
Yes. Well, and I love that idea of a step at a time. You don't like. I talked about this earlier. Say that you wanted to run a distance. Or somebody sets a goal for themselves, by the end of the year, I want to be able to run a half marathon. Yep. You don't go out day one and do that. No. Day one, you might just go to the end of the block and back, or you might walk around the block and then just jog for a little bit. And I think it's those increments, and then celebrate them along the way that, hey, I was able to run a little bit farther this week before I had to take a break and walk than I did the week before.
Like
so let me celebrate that.
Right.
And then you can, move towards that big goal.
I think maybe immediate gratification. Certain generations are, hurting ourselves by doing that. But it's a step by step, which I really appreciate, because sometimes it looks so. I have to go that far. Wow. There's a Bible verse I like and don't like. It's a lamp unto my feet and a light unto my path. And I think God kind of gives me just the lamp. Probably because the light looks really far. I'm not sure I can get there. The self-doubt,
Right.
or just the energy level that it takes to get there. There was a quote you want to read from Andrew Wood, that kind of the big hit, the home run, if you want to wrap it
Yeah.
up with.
So
You had a good one.
I love this quote from Andrew Wood. It just kind of encapsulates what I just said about those incremental steps. He wrote this: where many people go wrong in trying to reach their goals isn't constantly looking for the big hit, the home run, the magic answer that suddenly transforms their dreams into reality. The problem is that the big hit never comes without a great deal of little hits first. Success in most things comes not from some gigantic stroke of fate, but from simple, incremental progress.
Amen.
And so that's what we want to do, set those goals.
As we go from one year to another, or you maybe transition from a job to another, or maybe a different age to another, you're like, is there a better version of me out there yet?
Yep.
And I think there is for all
Absolutely.
of us. For all of us.
Every single one of us has the capacity. Just like Greg said, that coach that can call out a little bit more. Oh, I think I can only get 9. Nope. I think you can give me 3 more. And that's what we want to do. As I said before, go to maximizeleadership.com. You're going to find some resources on there that can help you, but you can also fill out that form under the coaching huddles, and we'll give you some honest feedback on how we could be able to help you and coach you into the next level. We love being able to respond to you as well. If you've got questions or ideas on future episodes, you can leave that as a comment below, or on Twitter, you can reach out to us at Maximize Podcast. Send us your feedback. Send us an idea. Say, hey, could you guys talk about this in an upcoming episode? That's where we love to be able to interact with you and serve you the best way we can. We believe in you, and we believe that you can go to the next level. That's why we come and bring you these episodes month after month, because we want to pour into your life. So reach out to us and let us help you get to those next level. Stay tuned. We got lots of great content coming for you this year.
Get in touch with Craig and Greg through Twitter at Maximize Podcast or at MaximizeLeadership.com. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any episodes of The Craig and Greg Show.